Hi, welcome back. I'm Carla, and this is the Piping Bag Bakery. I have a second installment for you today about the gluten-free grains and seeds that are usually found in the things that you buy or, um, yeah, from the supermarket, or maybe they're not found in the things that you buy from the supermarket. But I just wanted to give you a rundown of some of the things that I use when um, am cooking or baking gluten-free. But before that, I have to make this green juice. Um, it's really fast. I just gathered some leaves from my dino kale plants outside, a cucumber from the garden as well, green apple from the supermarket, not growing these yet, lime from the supermarket, half a lime, and some garlic and, not garlic, ginger and turmeric. I am growing turmeric this year, but it's not harvestable yet. So I have some that I chop up and freeze, so it's easy access for when I'm making my juices. I'll speed this up for you, but I'm going to do maybe 6 or 7 leaves. I'll even do the ones that the caterpillars like to chew on. I have washed this. I usually don't unless I find leaves that have been chewed on, which means somebody walked over them. And I usually just gather all of those up and I will juice those. I'm going to cut this up to about quarters. So actually, each one is an eighth, so 4/8 or half of a lime. I will use this entire apple just for its juiciness. I will core it, and that I will also cut into eighths. So I did half and quarters, and the quarters are now in halves. And cucumber, I'm going to do half. And I usually scoop out the seeds, even though that's like the juicy part. But trying to reduce the lectins that I ingest, and I will do a quick peel very carefully with a sharp knife. This knife is sharp. Cut myself yesterday. You may be wondering what I'm doing with all of the parts that I'm not using. I am composting them. So I will cut that into slices, just really rough chop or rough slicing. You can leave the skin on yours. I usually don't if it's from the supermarket. This is from my garden, but I am skinning it or peeling it because I need to reduce the lectins. For someone who has an autoimmune disease, and mine is Sjogren's or Sjogren's, and not chagrin. That's a totally different word. And celiac disease. So I have to avoid as many lectins as I can. As good as the veggies and fruit that they reside in or on, I have to be careful. So I usually put the most juicy parts in first, which is going to be my cukes. They're mostly water. And then I will follow with some apple and lime, and I will alternate. And then my last thing that I'm putting in is roughly cut up kale. And then in with the kale, I will put in about a finger, like the top part of to the first knuckle of your thumb, that size. ginger, and I will put in, I'm going to chop this up a little, about the same size for turmeric. Now, it's debatable whether turmeric in this form is as beneficial as when you use it in a powder or when you're cooking it with an oil or a fat. And black pepper. I've recently found out that turmeric is more nutritious and is easily absorbed when paired with an oil and black pepper, but I don't do black pepper. So high quality olive oil, extra virgin olive oil is usually what I do. I was going to say EVOO, but I get so tired of hearing that. Extra virgin olive oil. Anyway, so my kale goes in the middle with my spices, and then I go back and I do exactly what I did with the most juicy, which are the cukes, then everything else. And I might have to do this a little later. This is going to get really loud. I apologize. I'm going to have to put this in afterwards because I've jam-packed it and it's not that easy to juice. So I have a Breville juicer. You might have something different, maybe better, but this is what I have. Here's all my delicious pulp, which I could use in a soup if I wanted to. But what I usually do is compost this. It's already chopped up. It's great. It won't take very long to break down and become a very rich amendment to my garden soil. So let's see. Let's pour it into this glass. I do not usually do ice with this. I like to get all my nutrients. Cheers. Very good. Very good. Nice kick from the ginger. The kale wasn't overpowering. I can really taste the green apple. It's good. It's really good. And the cucumber, it just lightens everything up because sometimes kale can be pretty strong. Okay, so I'm back, and I've got some information about arrowroot, powder or flour. First of all, this is what it looks like. This is what it looks like. It's just kind of looks like corn starch. And it can be used in place of cornstarch. For instance, I don't usually use or eat corn unless it's organic. I grew it this year so that I knew where it was coming from, what had gone into it, whether it was grown close to wheat or not, whether my seeds were GMO, because corn is one of the most heavily genetically modified crops in our country, actually I think in our world, but don't quote me on that. In any case, so I don't use cornstarch at all. Instead of cornstarch, I use arrowroot powder or flour as a thickener, and for like gravies or things like that. I also use it as a coating when I'm frying something. And it makes it really, really nice and crunchy. It can get a little slimy depending on, like, if you're pairing it with something that has a lot of dairy in it. Not necessarily butter, but let's say milk. It can get a little slimy, but on the whole, it is a thickener. It can be used to dredge whatever you're frying in or baking to give it a nice crust, and it's really easy to digest. It is a starch. It comes from a tuber, and it is dried and processed and used in wet and dry applications. So one of the other things that is really great about arrowroot is that it is really high in a lot of vitamins and minerals and fiber, great fiber, and a great carbohydrate that, once again, like we discussed in our last video, is not one that your body readily converts to sugar. So let's take a look at arrowroot powder. It's low in calories. It has a higher content of carbs when it is dried and made into a powder than when it's left in its original form as a tuber. It also has a higher amount of dietary fiber than the root. It replaces cornstarch and it is paleo friendly. All right, so nutritional value: calories 65, carbs 13.39 grams, protein 4.24 grams, fat is 0.20 grams, fibers 1.3 grams, folates 338 UGs, and I have forgotten at this moment what that means, but I'll put it on the screen. Sodium is 28 milligrams, iron is 2.22 milligrams, and phosphorus is 38 milligrams. There are a ton of other vitamins and minerals that are found in arrowroot powder. I will also include that graphic in this video so that you can check it out. But these are the ones that are found at the highest concentrations. So this, as I said, replaces the cornstarch. It's paleo friendly. It has a long shelf life. In fact, this 5-pound bag I keep in the refrigerator, and if I didn't use it as often as I did, I could probably let this sit out, hang out there for like 1 to 2 years. Okay, it's that shelf stable. What else do I want to say? I think I said it all. These are my notes, and I pretty much said it all. It is a better thickener, did I say, than wheat. So even if you use wheat in your gravies to thicken it, if you wanted a better thickener than that, even if you don't need it to be gluten-free, arrowroot powder is your starch for that. So I'm going to leave you here with this. We're going to do some baking with this today. Yes, we are. We're going to use arrowroot and amaranth. Those are the two that we've talked about so far. And I know that it's misleading when I say grains and seeds, especially because this is a root. But it's very hard to do gluten-free baking without a starch to lighten those heavy flours like amaranth and buckwheat and teff. And to kind of like boost up the medium flours like millet and sorghum. So yeah, this is pretty vital to the process, and we're going to talk about that when we bake some biscotti. All right. Okay, so we're back, and we're getting ready to whip up some amaranth biscotti. So let's get started. Great. So let's talk about what we're going to need. We are going to need 70 grams of amaranth flour, which we are going to grind fresh, 25 grams of rice flour, or in my case, arrowroot. Now, rice and arrowroot both are starchy. You can interchange them if you can't find or don't have arrowroot flour on hand. You can use a very fine white rice flour, but it will not be as nutritious. 40 grams of almond meal. You can leave this out and substitute those 40 grams with 40 more grams of the amaranth flour. You will also need a teaspoon of baking powder, a 1/4 teaspoon of baking soda, and a pinch of salt. 2 teaspoons of, did I say spoons? 2 teaspoons of ground anise seed, or in my case, I use the actual star anise, ground it in a pestle and mortar, and sifted it. You will also need a tablespoon of orange zest. That's about one very large orange. You will need 100 grams of brown sugar, and I'm not using brown today, but I am using evaporated cane juice, 2 large eggs. You will need a teaspoon of pure vanilla, and you will need, sorry, let me stay with my liquids. You'll need 100 grams of butter. You will need 3/4 cups of tiny dark chocolate chocolate chips. All right, so let's grind this flour. I'm using my Nutrimill. And we only want 70 grams. So I'm just going to turn my Nutrimill on. It's going to be loud, so. Okay, so I'm going to stop right here because I've noticed that it's not as fine as I want it. And I can put it back through, which is what I think I'm going to do right now. And then I am going to adjust it to a finer texture. Okay. So right, so I'm going to stop right there, and I'm going to pour it through again, and I'm going to get it just a little finer than that. All right, so we have ground some amaranth, and I've gotten it as fine as I can, and as fine as I want to, actually. So I'm going to measure 70 grams. Let me do the tare. Yeah, I want to measure 70 grams into this. And this is pretty close. Woo, good. We only have this left over, which is okay. All right. So to this 70 grams of amaranth flour, we are going to add our almond. I won't use my fingers. I would if you were not here. I am going to add my arrowroot flour, and I'm going to stir. Okay, and mix it as well as I can. Okay, I am going to add all my dry ingredients except for my sugar. So in goes the baking powder, baking soda, and salt. In goes the ground star anise or the anise seed, whichever one you have. Mix very well. And another thing that is not necessarily a dry ingredient that you can add at this point is your orange zest. And the reason why I add my orange zest now is because it will become coated with the flowers and won't just like clump together and sink in one spot. It will be well distributed in the dough. All right, I am pretty happy with that. That looks pretty evenly distributed. If I see any more lumps along the way, I will just kind of like mash them down with my rubber spatula, and that will break the clump up. All right, I am pretty well done with this, so we're going to turn it off and move it out of the way. I'm going to cover my Nutrimilk top and move it out the way, and I will dry that a little later on. To be honest with you, sometimes I even add in this ingredient, which is my chocolate chips. I will add them in for the same reason that I added the orange zest in, and that is just to coat them so that they will not be clumped up in one spot, and they kind of remain individual, as you can see. That's another little bakery trick there. All right, I'm going to try to remember to leave everything on this side because I'm hoping, I don't have a cameraman today. I'm hoping that you can see what I'm doing. All right, all right. Now, what we're going to do is we are going to, I'm going to put this in here because right now we want to mix our wet ingredients. That's not going to work, so I'll do it this way. Okay, so we're going to mix our wet ingredients and also our sugar. Okay, and we're going to whisk that. So I always crack eggs into a bowl, always, always. And the reason why I do that is because if there's anything in the egg that or the egg is damaged in any way, I have not spoiled any other ingredient by having this here. It gives me an opportunity to look at the quality of the egg, which these are fresh, farm fresh eggs from a local farmer. And so I'm not worried. I picked them up recently. I'm not worried at all about them. Okay, so that's off to the side. My 100 grams of butter. Now, I know you're thinking, why doesn't she just use a mixer? And I could. And in fact, I will. I'll be right back. Okay, so we're back and we're all set up to process our wet ingredients. We are going to begin with whipping our butter. We will then add to the butter the sugar, then the eggs, and then the vanilla. This is going to be loud, so I'm not going to talk. All right, now I'm going to sprinkle in carefully my sugar, and I've turned down the velocity because, yeah, I don't want it going all over. Okay, so now before I add in the eggs, I'm just going to scrape down my sides. All right. Now I can put in my eggs, and I'm going to add them one at a time. That's pretty well incorporated, and now I'm going to add the second egg. And right now I am going to scrape this down, and I'm going to let this go for about 1 to 2 minutes on medium high. Okay, and then we will add the teaspoon of vanilla. Okay, now I'm going to add my teaspoon of vanilla. I'm going to incorporate that. And we're going to scrape this down a bit and see where we are. It's a little curdled, which is okay, because we are actually going to let the batter, once we combine the wet with the dry, we are actually going to let that sit for a bit, because gluten-free grains lack gluten, obviously, and that elasticity. They also need to take in more liquid than glutinous grains. So allowing them to hydrate takes time, and that's necessary for a good product. I think this is pretty good, and I'm going to show it to you. Oh, my allergies. Ooh, boy, oh boy. You can tell when goldenrod and all the other lovely field flowers are going to seed or blooming, because my allergies just go nuts. Alright, so we have cleaned up a little bit, and what we're going to be working on now is combining the dry and the wet ingredients. So I'm just going to dump them in here. Let me do it this way so you can see. Hold on. All right. The wet ingredients in. All right. So that's pretty good for a right-handed person using their left hand. I'm sorry, guys. I'm just going to switch very quickly and get it in here. There we go. Don't want to waste it. Not a drop. Okay, so I'm going to mix this. I'm going to mix this up. Just gently mixing it. Just gently mixing it. Now, as I said, it does need to hydrate. So while this is sitting and hydrating, I am going to prepare the surface for where we are going to be rolling the logs. Now, I can already see that this is a little bit, a little too wet. So I am going to use some of the flour that we had left. And I'm just going to sprinkle a little on top and then incorporate it. One of the things that I forgot to mention is when you're using amaranth, amaranth is such a small grain that very often it's hard to get it as fine as you want. So it's going to be, it has a little bit of a bite and tooth to it, a little crunchiness to it. But as I said, the longer it is left to hydrate, the better it will perform in terms of texture. And with biscotti, it's dry, it doesn't rise as much as other baked goods. It's a low rise baked good. So yeah, I think we'll be okay with maybe just a little bit more. And this is about, I had about half cup left over, or maybe, I want to say about 25 grams left from what I milled. I'm just going to keep adding until I get it to a nice texture. A little bit drier, I should say. Okay, and I think we're pretty good right now. Okay, so for rolling, because again, we're dealing with gluten-free flour, I like to put down something to roll the log with. Now I'm going to, you can use wax paper, I'm going to use plastic wrap, and I'm going to butter it lightly. You can use a spatula. I just neglected to get another one out. Okay, so that's pretty good. Okay, so I'm going to use this area, and I'm going to sprinkle it with some of this flour that I had left over. And I'm going to make a log. And I will be honest, this log we are going to cut into 2 pieces, but if you wanted to, you could make 2 logs from the very beginning. That's if you like. Okay, so let's get all of this off. Don't want to waste it because this is a really nice biscotti. And I'm going to start rolling it like this. And as you can see, some of it's going to stick. You can play around with this if you like. Okay, so I am going to add a little bit more flour to this. Okay. A little bit more. All right, great. I'm just gonna save this a little bit. Because we do not like to waste any of this good stuff, right? Okay, I'm going to keep working. As you can see, it's coming together pretty nicely. And then I'm going to cut her in half, like this. And I am hoping, you guys, to get this to come up To do that, you might want to use a scraper. If you have a pastry scraper. Now I could have done this on my countertop, since that's actually why I made that. I had them install this type of a countertop. All right, there, that's looking better. This is again a wet dough. You need a little bit more moisture when you're dealing with gluten-free. Play with this, it's not as difficult as it seems. So I'm going to get my sheet pan together. I've preheated my oven already to 180 Celsius, which I believe is like 375 maybe, or 355. I'm not sure. I'll let you know. Okay, here we go. We're gonna get this baby on to the sheet pan. There we go. And then I'm just going to continue to form it with my scraper. All right, it smells so good, you guys. All right, and now let's get the second one. These are not equal or even or equal weight, but that's okay. In fact, I'm just gonna pick her up and put her on here. Yay! There you go. And this is a prepared sheet pan with parchment paper that has not been greased or oiled. Okay, so here we are. Here's our log. She's a little wet, but I think that's gonna be okay. I'm happy with her. Here we go. So let me just even her up just a little bit. And there we go. All right, guys. So we're gonna put this in the oven at 180 C. That's Celsius. And if this didn't, and what you could do is you could actually mix an egg up as well, and brush it on top, and then put some sugar on top. But I'm just gonna leave her the way she is because I think she has enough sugar in her, to tell you the truth. All right, let's pop her in, and I'll see you back here in, let's see, about 25 minutes. Okay. Okay, so these have cooled for about 7 minutes, and now I'm going to start to cut them. They're not, as I told you in the previous video, Amaranth is used in applications where you do not need to have a high rise. So these are low rise. These biscotti are low rise, and so I'm not concerned that they are flat. What I want from my biscotti, or my twice baked breads or cookies, is that crispness. So they're still soft, and biscotti are like a nice hard biscuit. So I'm gonna cut off the ends, and those are good for snacking on now. They're a little brown. I'm gonna cut off that part, and you can already tell that that's the sound you want to hear when you bite into a biscotti. Not when you cut the first time, but when you bite into them after the second bake. So about, you can do these on a diagonal, which is what I think I'm going to do. So let me see. I'm just gonna pop this part off and start making my diagonals. That's 1 biscotti, 2 biscotti, 3 biscotti. I won't count them all out. And then these are just scraps that anybody can munch on. In fact, I'm going to take a bite. So, they're nice and crisp. There isn't that grainy feeling when you usually eat amaranth, because it was ground pretty fine. But the chocolate pops with the orange and that undercurrent of anise or licorice taste. Yum. You can leave that out if you don't like it. Okay, so now what do we do with this? I'm going to get the sheet pan that I had. Already has a parchment on it. And now I am actually going to lay them down like this, cut side down. This is the way I'm going to lay them. Right now they have the texture of a cookie, a soft cookie, and we don't want them to be soft. We absolutely do want them to be crunchy. So I'm going to lay them like this, and I'm going to leave about ½ an inch in between them, just so air can circulate. All right, here we go. I'm excited to have biscotti with my tea today. All right. And I'm going to probably get some baby biscotti.
Mommy?
Yes?
Savannah's with Papa.
Okay, so guess what? I'm making a video right now. I'm making some Italian twice-baked cookies. So you want to come over this way? You can say hi. Go hi up there at the camera. Hey, this is Christian. I'll be right with you, okay? All right, so I'm going to pop these in the oven for another 35 minutes at 130 degrees Celsius, or about 300 Fahrenheit. I'm not sure about that, but I'll put, it might be 275, I'm not sure, or maybe 285, but I'll put it down below so that you'll know, and all of this will be in the video notes. All right, see you in a bit.
Mommy? My kid has a fizzy water.
Yeah. Do you want to taste this?
Mm-hmm. It tastes like good.
Hmm?
It tastes good.
You like it?
Mm-hmm.
Good. All right. So, it has been 35 minutes. These are fresh out of the oven. And that oven was set to, for the second baking, the oven was set to 150 degrees Celsius. I said 130. I was wrong. It's 150 degrees Celsius, which is approximately 300 degrees. So out of all of the numbers that I named, when I got to 300, I was correct. So, yeah. Anyway, take a look at them. They're nice and brown, but they're not burnt. And I'm going to taste one. They're not too hot. But what you're looking for is a crispness. So when I touch them, they are not. I don't leave an indentation when I touch any side of them. They're a little bit hot. So I am going to try. These little ones got crisped really fast. I'm going to try a larger one. So let's try this one. Yes, Mama. Okay. Yeah, hold on for 1 second. Excuse me while I tend to. Come here, Savannah. Savannah Rose. Oh, my granddaughter. This is Christian's sister. What are you doing? You want to play? Oh, you want to play bingo? All right. You want to play bingo?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll open it up for you. Here you go.
Dodo.
Here you are.
Thank you.
You're welcome, Mama. Okay. So, I'm going to taste this one. Let's listen for the crunch. I don't know if you can hear it, but it's crunchy. Good job. I hope you enjoy them. If you do try this, let me know. Share your pictures of your bakes with me on your IG, my IG, or Instagram account. You can always just tag me in your story or in the photo of your bake if you want to try these. I really, really think you'll be pleased. All right, I'm gonna make some tea because I'm having some biscotti for a late morning breakfast. Take care, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.